South West Central London Green Party. There was some criticism mentioned of the way resources were distributed around the European elections. Do you have anything to say about that? And how would you, so in further elections, how would you, any ideas about how resources should be distributed around the country and target
well, I heard that this criticism was going around, but when I was at the London Fed meeting this week, last Monday, they seemed to say that London actually didn't get any more money at all. So I don't think it's the case that it's, because of the special knowledge of this, and that they said at the meeting anyway there was no extra money given to London. That I don't know whether the rumour started off that this was the case during the European elections, and the GPEX hadn't allocated any more. In fact, London had given some to the election campaign nationally rather than the other way around. So I have absolutely no idea the truth of this because there's different stories going around. And I do think, the target to win is the thing that we have to do, and we must focus on target to win. And we've got three main constituencies, and for the general election, that's what we must focus on. Those are our winnable seats. But equally, when we're talking about that strategy, I would like to see many more people standing as candidates for the general election, because I believe it is important that as many people as possible get an opportunity to vote Green, because I do think it sends a mandate to government. I've seen it in operation at the GLA, how it works. So even if we only get one MP, maybe two, three, fantastic. But if we get a lot of people voting for us, then the government really can't ignore it. And other campaigning organisations can use that as well as a leverage too against the government. So I think it is important as much as we can. So what we have to do is be strategic and think about ways of trying to encourage other regions, parties to stand candidates. And of course, why be so negative as to think they're going to lose their deposits? If we've got this groundswell of voting towards the Green Party, if we do have lots of people wanting to vote for us, then maybe they won't lose their deposits. We ought to be more positive about it and think, yes, we can do this. And of course, by encouraging parties to stand candidates, they will get more involved, inevitably, especially if they put up money. They'll work to try and save the money if nothing else. Of course, they're green activists, so they'll want to get the votes out there. But it is, again, a virtuous circle, but it all is self-reinforcing. So I think it is important. But however, the priority is, target to win strategy, of course. But I do think we want to look at it. Now, again, the million green votes, I heard this banded around, but I don't believe it's actually a policy. I'm not sure that anyone has said this is a policy, and I'm sure they wouldn't, in fact, because I think it's... if we start telling the press we want a million green votes, then we don't get it. It's not good. What we want to try and do is just massively increase our votes. We do not want hostage to fortune like that, I believe. So I don't believe that it's actually something that we want to do from my recollection, talking with people and hearing about it, but it's not actually a policy at all. So I think that's a little bit unfortunate, and we need to be careful about that one as well. But yeah, so I think finance target to win, certainly, but as I say, extra votes as much as possible.
Thank you. Well, just comment on that.
Okay, I was, I've sort of put the case that resources were incorrectly allocated in the latter stages, at least, of the European election campaign. I was challenged by this by a number of people, not on the public discussion list, but I am happy to provide anyone, at their request, a very long and detailed email about the numerous GPEX meetings, the numerous GPEX campaigns and communications committee, which is subcommittee to GPEX meetings they had, where it was decided that certain resources, not necessarily money, certain resources would be given to the London region and the London campaign to re-elect our MEP there, rather than certain resources that weren't then accessible or allocated to other regions where we could have won MEPs but didn't. So, like I said, I'm happy to provide people with those details, and really, it's not a question of rumors, it's a question of facts. It is a fact that in the latter stages of the European campaign, London was prioritised, and like I said, I'm more than willing to, and more than happy to provide everyone or anyone with details about why that was the case. So, if after the debate you would like to leave me an email address, I can forward you the email to set the matter straight. This question of mandate, and again, I think there is a consensus that our focus should be targeting to win, the 3 general, election constituencies. I don't believe that if we fail to elect members, because after all, the aims and objects of the Green Party, as stated in the Constitution, are to win seats at all levels. I don't believe that if we fail to do that, we don't elect seats, that we somehow have a mandate, that we somehow have, that we can really persuade the public, that we can really persuade the media, that we can persuade even ourselves that we're making progress. Seats equals progress. Vote share, 1 million votes, 100,000 Green votes, and I'll get into the issue of the 1 million votes in a second, that particular phrase. But seats, votes don't pass policy. Votes elect seats. Votes elect representatives on behalf of the people who then pass policy. If you don't win seats, I don't believe I'm being negative here. I'm being realistic and I'm being honest, and I believe that people have to face up to the reality that we didn't move forward in the European elections. People say we increased our vote share, by 44% of what it was before. Now, an increase from 1 to 1.44% is also an increase of 44% of what the previous sum. It doesn't tell you anything about the strength of the party. What tells you about the strength of the party nationally, especially in comparison to parties like the BNP and you get the other small parties that are on the rise, is that we didn't make any progress. And I think next year, no matter how many votes we get, people say I'm being negative that by assuming that most people, if let's say for example we stand in the region of 500 to 600 general election candidates, I don't think I'm being negative by saying most of those candidates will lose their deposits. The whole premise of targeting, the whole premise of electoral strategy is that the more resources you focus on fewer candidates, the more votes those candidates are likely to win, the more votes they win, the higher the chance they have of getting elected, which again is one of the objects and aims of the Green Party, to actually elect people who then pass the policies that we develop in various chambers. So, I think it's a fair assumption that the more candidates you stand, and we haven't got the resources to win more than 5% in lots and lots of places, the more candidates you stand, the less likely those candidates are to get the 5% barrier. The issue about the whole thing about 1 million Green votes, it was in that phrase itself. It was in the strategy paper passed by the current Green Party executive and proposed by the current Green Party executive chair in January 2009, and also in the updated strategy paper of July 2009, where the phrase was used that if we elected an MP into Parliament, or we didn't elect an MP into Parliament, we would be able to say that 1 million people voted Green. As I've said, even if it was 1 million, no matter how many votes we get, even if it's 2 million or 3 million, if we don't win seats, and yes, we have a ridiculously disproportionate electoral system, but it's one that we've had for a long time, and it's no longer any excuse when other parties start winning seats and we don't. If you don't win seats, you're not making progress. You're not hitting your targets. We have 3 targets. Don't at least hit one of them. Then, no matter how many other votes we get, it's not going to ameliorate anything. It's not going to provide a mandate. Government can ignore us. They continue to ignore us anyway. We do find ourselves as a party, somewhere between being on the margins of the debate and just about have an opportunity to break into the mainstream and really change politics. What we're here for. We're not here to hope for change. We're here to implement change and make a more just, equitable, and sustainable society. And we do that by winning seats.